St. Catherine's Church had been abandoned for 12 years. The congregation had dwindled to nothing. The diocese sold the building to developers who promised to turn it into luxury condos. But the economy crashed, the developers went bankrupt, and St. Catherine's was left to rot. The stained glass windows were shattered. The pews were covered in dust and bird droppings. The cross above the altar had fallen and lay broken on the floor. But on a freezing January night in 2024, someone pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped inside. Her name was Ruth Morrison. She was 79 years old. She was homeless. And she was about to discover something in the basement of that abandoned church that would force her to confront the biggest mistake of her life. What she found wasn't treasure. It wasn't money. It was something far more valuable and far more painful. Stay with me, because this is a story about guilt, redemption, and the secrets we bury in the dark places of our hearts. Ruth Morrison had been a successful real estate agent for 35 years. She sold million-dollar homes to wealthy clients. She drove a Mercedes. She wore designer clothes. She lived in a beautiful townhouse in the best part of the city. But Ruth's success came at a price. She worked 80-hour weeks. She missed birthdays, holidays, school plays. Her daughter Emily grew up barely knowing her mother. Ruth was always at an open house, always closing a deal, always choosing work over family. Emily left for college and barely called. She graduated and moved across the country. She got married and Ruth found out through a Facebook post. She had a baby and Ruth saw the photos on Instagram before receiving a phone call. The distance between mother and daughter grew wider every year until it became a canyon neither of them knew how to cross. Ruth told herself it was fine. Emily was busy. Ruth was busy. They'd reconnect someday. There was always time. Except there wasn't. 3 years ago, Ruth's world collapsed. The real estate market crashed. Her investments failed. She had been living beyond her means for years, spending everything she made to maintain her image. When the money stopped coming in, the bills piled up. She lost her townhouse, her car, her savings, everything. At 76 years old, Ruth Morrison found herself broke and alone. She tried calling Emily. The number had been disconnected. She tried Facebook. Emily had blocked her. She tried sending letters to the last address she had. They came back marked return to sender. Ruth spent the next 3 years bouncing between shelters, cheap motels, and the streets. She was too proud to ask for help from former colleagues, too ashamed to reach out to old friends. She had spent her entire life building an image of success, and she couldn't bear to let anyone see how far she had fallen. Winter came and the shelters were overcrowded. Ruth found herself walking the streets at 2 a.m, searching for somewhere warm to sleep. That's when she saw St. Catherine's Church. She remembered this church. She had sold the property for the diocese 12 years ago. It had been one of her biggest commissions. She had celebrated at an expensive restaurant while the elderly parishioners cried about losing their spiritual home. Ruth hadn't cared then. It was just business. Just another deal. Just another commission check. But now, standing in front of the abandoned building, Ruth felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The church was freezing, but it was better than the street. Ruth found a pew near the back that wasn't completely destroyed. She lay down, pulled her thin coat around herself and closed her eyes. She was asleep in minutes. But at 3 a.m, she woke to a sound. Footsteps. Someone else was in the church. Ruth sat up, her heart pounding. She saw a figure moving in the darkness. A man. He was walking toward the altar. Ruth held her breath, trying to decide whether to run or hide. But then the man stopped. He lit a candle. And in the flickering light, Ruth saw his face. He was crying. The man didn't see Ruth. He knelt in front of the broken altar, his shoulders shaking with sobs. Ruth watched, frozen. After several minutes, the man stood, wiped his face and left. Ruth waited until she was sure he was gone, then got up and walked to where he had been kneeling. The candle was still burning. Next to it was a photograph. A young woman. Maybe 25 years old. Beautiful. Smiling. And beneath the photo, someone had written in shaky handwriting, "Sarah. I'm sorry. I love you. I should have been there." Ruth picked up the photograph and stared at it. She didn't know who Sarah was. She didn't know who the man was. But she recognized the grief, the regret, the guilt. She had felt it every day for 3 years. The guilt of choosing work over family. Of losing her daughter because she was too busy making money. Ruth carefully placed the photograph back and returned to her pew. She fell asleep thinking about the crying man and his daughter Sarah. When Ruth woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the broken stained glass windows, creating patterns of colored light on the dusty floor. She sat up and looked around. The church looked different in daylight. Less frightening. Almost peaceful. Ruth stood and walked around exploring. The sanctuary was large, with high ceilings and ornate woodwork that had been beautiful once. The pews were damaged but sturdy. The altar was broken but still standing. And at the back of the church, Ruth found a door she hadn't noticed the night before. It was slightly open. Ruth pushed it wider and looked inside. Stairs. Leading down into darkness. The basement. Ruth hesitated. She had no flashlight. No phone. But curiosity pulled at her. She carefully descended the stairs, using the wall to guide herself. At the bottom she found a large room. And she wasn't alone. There were people here. 5 of them. They had created a makeshift camp in the church basement. Sleeping bags. Camping lanterns. Food supplies. They were all staring at Ruth with a mixture of fear and suspicion. "Who are you?" a woman asked. Her voice was hard. Defensive. Ruth raised her hands. "I'm nobody. I just needed somewhere to sleep. I'm homeless." The tension in the room eased slightly. The woman who had spoken stepped forward. She was maybe 60 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. "I'm Linda," she said. "This is James, Marcus, Yolanda, and Thomas. We've been living here for about 6 months. You can stay if you want. But we have rules. No drugs. No stealing. No violence. We look out for each other." Ruth nodded. "I understand. Thank you." Over the next few days, Ruth learned about her new roommates. Linda had been a nurse until she got sick and lost her job. James was a veteran with PTSD who couldn't hold down work. Marcus was a former teacher who had a mental breakdown after his wife died. Yolanda was a domestic violence survivor who had fled her abuser with nothing. And Thomas was the man Ruth had seen crying at the altar. His daughter Sarah had died in a car accident 2 years ago. He blamed himself for not being there. For working late that night instead of picking her up from a party. He had fallen apart after her death and lost everything. Ruth realized something profound. Every person in this basement was running from guilt. From regret. From some version of themselves they couldn't forgive. They had all ended up here in the basement of an abandoned church, because they had nowhere else to go. And somehow they had created a family. They shared food. They watched out for each other. They told stories at night by lantern light. They had less than nothing, but they had each other. And for the first time in 3 years, Ruth didn't feel alone. Before we continue with Ruth's story, I need to ask you something. If you're watching this and feeling the weight of Ruth's regret, if you've ever felt like you made choices you can't undo, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to sharing stories of people who have suffered, who have lost everything, and who found a way to keep going. Your subscription helps us tell these important stories. Now let's see what Ruth discovered in that basement that changed everything. Ruth had been living in the church basement for 2 weeks when she noticed something strange. At night, after everyone else was asleep, Linda would disappear. She would climb the stairs to the main church and be gone for hours. Ruth tried to ignore it. Everyone deserved their privacy. But curiosity got the better of her. One night, Ruth followed Linda. She stayed far enough back that Linda wouldn't notice, climbing the stairs quietly and peering into the sanctuary. Linda was at the altar. But she wasn't praying. She was working. Ruth watched as Linda pulled back a loose section of the altar's base panel. Behind it was a hollow space. And inside that space were boxes. Linda pulled out one box and opened it. Inside were letters. Hundreds of letters. Linda sat on the floor and began reading them by candlelight. Ruth couldn't hear what the letters said, but she could see Linda's face. She was crying. After an hour, Linda carefully put the letters back, replaced the panel, and returned to the basement. Ruth quickly hid, pretending to be asleep when Linda came back. The next night, Ruth waited until everyone was asleep, then went to the altar herself. She found the loose panel and pulled it open. Inside were 12 boxes, each labeled with a year. 1985, 1986, 1987, all the way to 1996. Ruth pulled out the first box and opened it. Inside were letters addressed to Father Michael O'Brien, Street Catherine's Church. The return addresses were different, but the letters all had something in common. They were confessions. Not formal confessions. Personal letters. People writing to Father O'Brien about their guilt, their sins, their regrets. People asking for guidance. For forgiveness. For hope. Ruth opened one letter and began reading. Dear Father O'Brien, I made a terrible mistake. I cheated on my wife 20 years ago. He never knew. We had 3 children together and lived what looked like a happy life. But I carried this guilt every day. Now she's sick with cancer. She's dying. And I don't know if I should tell her the truth before she dies or let her die thinking I was faithful. What do I do? The letter was dated 1987. 37 years ago. Ruth wondered if the man had ever told his wife. If he had found peace. If Father O'Brien had helped him. She read another letter. This one from a mother who had given her baby up for adoption at 16 and spent 30 years wondering if she had made the right choice. Another from a man who had caused a car accident that killed someone and had never been caught. Another from a woman who had stolen money from her dying father. Another from a man who had abandoned his children and regretted it every day. Letter after letter. Box after box. Thousands of confessions. Thousands of people carrying unbearable guilt. And Father O'Brien had kept every single letter. Ruth spent the entire night reading. She couldn't stop. Each letter was a window into someone's soul. Each one revealed the secret pain people carry. The mistakes they can't undo. The guilt that eats them alive. And then Ruth found a letter that made her stop breathing. It was dated 1992. Dear Father O'Brien, I'm a successful businesswoman. I have everything anyone could want. Money, status, respect. But I've lost the only thing that really matters. My daughter. I was never there for her. I chose work over her every single time. Now she's grown and she won't speak to me. I don't blame her. I was a terrible mother. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if it can be fixed. I'm writing to you because I have no one else to talk to. Please help me understand how I let this happen. How I became this person. Signed Ruth stared at the letter. Her initials. But she had never written to Father O'Brien. He had never even met him. This couldn't be her letter. She looked at the envelope. The return address was different from hers. But the story was identical. Another woman. Another real estate career. Another lost daughter. Another life of regret. Ruth felt like she was looking at a mirror. She wasn't the only one. She wasn't the only person who had made this mistake. Who had chosen ambition over love. Who had lost everything that mattered. He kept reading. Father O'Brien had responded to many of the letters. His responses were thoughtful. Compassionate. He didn't offer easy answers or cheap forgiveness. He asked questions. He challenged people to do the hard work of making amends. He reminded them that guilt without action is just self-pity. That true repentance requires change. Ruth found Father O'Brien's response to You ask how you became this person. But you already know. You made 1,000 small choices that led you here. The good news is that you can make different choices starting now. It's not too late. It's never too late. Your daughter may not forgive you. She may never speak to you again. But you can still change. You can still become the person you wish you had been. Not for her. For yourself. That's where redemption begins. Ruth sat on the floor of the abandoned church, surrounded by letters from people she'd never meet and finally understood. She had spent 3 years feeling sorry for herself. Blaming circumstances. Blaming the economy. Blaming bad luck. But the truth was simpler and harder. She had made choices. She had chosen money over Emily. Over and over again. For 35 years. And now Emily was gone. Ruth couldn't change the past. But maybe, just maybe, she could change herself. Not to get Emily back. But because it was the right thing to do. Because she didn't want to die as the person she had become. Ruth is about to make a decision that will change not just her life, but the lives of everyone in that church basement. But before we continue, I need you to do something. If this story is making you think about your own regrets, your own choices, your own guilt, hit that like button right now. And leave a comment. Tell me about a choice you wish you could undo. Tell me about someone you need to make amends with. This community is here to share these burdens together. And make sure you're subscribed, because what Ruth does next will surprise you. Now let's continue. Ruth couldn't sleep after reading the letters. Her mind was racing with an idea. A crazy idea. But maybe crazy was exactly what she needed. The next morning she gathered everyone in the basement. Linda, James, Marcus, Yolanda, and Thomas. She told them about the letters. About Father O'Brien. About the thousands of confessions hidden behind the altar. And then she told them her idea. We should respond to them. The group stared at her. What do you mean? Linda asked. Father O'Brien is dead. The church is closed. Most of these letters are 30 years old. Exactly, Ruth said. These people wrote their deepest secrets to a priest who's been dead for over a decade. They never got closure. They never got answers. But we can give them that. We can write back. We can tell them they're not alone. We can help them the way Father O'Brien helped people. It's insane, Marcus said. But his eyes were bright. We're homeless people living in a church basement, Yolanda added. Why would anyone listen to us? Because we understand, Ruth said quietly. Every letter in those boxes is about guilt. About regret. About choices people can't undo. And every single person in this basement knows exactly what that feels like. We're not priests. We're not therapists. But we're survivors. And sometimes that's more valuable. Thomas spoke for the first time. His voice was rough from disuse. My daughter died because I wasn't there. I've spent 2 years wishing I could go back. Wishing I could change that one decision. These letters, they're full of people like me. People who are drowning in what? Maybe we can throw them a rope. Even if we're drowning too. The group was silent for a long moment. Then Linda nodded. Let's do it. Let's answer the letters. They developed a system. Each night they would bring down one box of letters. They would read them aloud, discuss them, and write responses together. They used old letterhead they found in the church office. They signed the letters as the St. Catherine's Community. They didn't pretend to be Father O'Brien. They were honest about who they were. Homeless people living in an abandoned church, writing to strangers about guilt and forgiveness and second chances. They knew most of the letters would never reach anyone. Addresses from 30 years ago were useless. But they wrote anyway. And then Ruth had another idea. They would track down the letter writers. Use the internet at the public library. Use social media. Use public records. If the person was still alive, they would try to find them. Try to deliver the letters in person. Try to offer closure. It was ambitious. Maybe impossible. But they had nothing but time. They had nothing to lose. And for the first time in years, they all had a purpose. Something bigger than survival. Something that mattered. Over the next 3 months, the group worked 12-hour days. They read letters. They wrote responses. They researched. Linda used her nursing skills to talk about health issues mentioned in letters. James used his military experience to connect with veterans. Marcus used his teaching background to help with the writing. Yolanda used her survival instincts to track people down. Thomas used his grief to write about loss. And Ruth used her business skills to organize everything. They were a team. A family. A community. They found their first person in week 4. A woman named Patricia Chin who had written to Father O'Brien in 1989 about abandoning her mentally ill sister. Patricia was now 72 and living in a nursing home 2 states away. Ruth called the nursing home. She explained who she was. What they were doing. The nurse who answered was skeptical. But she agreed to give Patricia the message. 3 days later, Patricia called back. I don't understand, she said. Why would you do this? Why would strangers care about a letter I wrote 35 years ago? Because someone cared enough to keep it, Ruth said. Father O'Brien kept your letter for 25 years. He kept all of them. And we found them. And we think you deserve to know that your guilt wasn't forgotten. That your pain mattered. That you're not alone. Patricia was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I think about my sister every day. I abandoned her when she needed me most. I was ashamed of her illness. Ashamed of how she acted. I haven't forgiven myself in 35 years. Ruth's voice was gentle. Then maybe it's time to try. They talked for 2 hours. Ruth told Patricia about her own guilt. About Emily. About the choices she couldn't undo. Patricia cried. Ruth cried. And at the end, Patricia said something that changed everything. Thank you. I thought I was the only person who had ever done something unforgivable. But you did too. And you're still trying. If you can try, maybe I can too. After that call, Ruth went back to the basement and looked at her team. This works, she said. We're actually helping people. We need to do more. Ruth and her team are about to discover just how many lives they can touch. But I need to pause here and tell you something. If you're feeling inspired right now, if you're thinking about how you could use your own pain to help others, you need to subscribe to this channel. We share these stories because they matter. Because they show us that no matter how far we fall, we can still make a difference. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Now let's see what happens when Ruth's project goes viral. Word spread quickly. Patricia told her nurses about the letter. The nurses told their families. Someone posted about it on social media. Local news picked up the story. Homeless group living in abandoned church answers decades-old letters. The article went viral. Within a week, Ruth's group was flooded with attention. Donations poured in. People sent food, clothes, supplies. But more importantly, people started showing up. People who had written letters to Father O'Brien decades ago. People who had never received responses. People who wanted closure. A 65-year-old man named David showed up at the church with a copy of a letter he had written in 1991. He had confessed to Father O'Brien that he was gay and terrified to tell his family. He had spent 33 years in the closet, married to a woman he didn't love, living a lie. Ruth and her team sat with David for hours. They read his letter aloud. They told him it was okay, that he deserved to live authentically, that it wasn't too late. David cried so hard he couldn't speak. A week later he came out to his family. Some rejected him. Some accepted him. But he told Ruth that for the first time in his life he felt free. A woman named Angela drove 6 hours to find them. She had written to Father O'Brien in 1988 about giving up her baby for adoption. She had carried guilt for 36 years, wondering if her daughter hated her. Wondering if she had made the right choice. Ruth's group helped Angela search for her daughter. They used DNA testing services, public records, social media. It took 2 months, but they found her. The daughter, now 37 years old, had been searching for her birth mother for 5 years. Ruth arranged their reunion in the church. It was the most beautiful thing any of them had ever witnessed. The church basement became a counseling center. People came from all over the region. They brought their guilt, their secrets, their pain, and Ruth's team listened. They didn't judge. They didn't offer easy answers. They just listened and shared their own stories of regret and survival. The local diocese heard about what was happening. Instead of shutting it down, they offered support. They provided funding to restore part of the church. They helped establish a formal nonprofit organization, the St. Catherine's Redemption Project, a place where people could come to confess, to heal, to find community. But Ruth still hadn't found Emily. She had tried everything. Every search engine. Every social media platform. Every public record database. Emily had vanished completely. Or maybe she simply didn't want to be found. Ruth had to face the possibility that she would never see her daughter again. Never get the chance to apologize. Never get the chance to make amends. And that hurt more than anything. But Ruth realized something important. She couldn't do this work to get Emily back. She had to do it because it was right. Because helping others helped her. Because redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a different future. One evening, 6 months into the project, Ruth was sitting in the now partially restored church, reading letters when someone walked in. Ruth looked up. It was a woman. Maybe 40 years old. She had dark hair and green eyes. She looked familiar, but Ruth couldn't place her. The woman walked slowly down the aisle and stopped in front of Ruth. She didn't say anything at first. Just stared. And then Ruth understood. Emily. Ruth couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Her daughter was standing 5 feet away from her. The daughter she hadn't seen in 6 years. Emily looked different. Older. Tired. But still beautiful. Mom, Emily said quietly. The word hit Ruth like a physical blow. She started to stand, but Emily held up a hand. Don't. Just sit. I need to say something. Ruth sat back down, her heart hammering. I saw the article about what you're doing here, Emily continued. About the letters. About helping people with their guilt. And I thought that's rich. My mother, who abandoned me for 35 years, is now helping strangers find redemption. Ruth opened her mouth to speak, but Emily cut her off. I'm not done. I came here to tell you that it's too late. That I don't forgive you. That you don't get to fix this by helping other people. You made your choice. You chose work over me. Every single time. And now you're living in a church basement playing therapist to strangers because your real daughter won't talk to you. The words were harsh, brutal. But Ruth didn't defend herself. He just listened. Because Emily was right. Emily's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to grow up with a mother who's never there? To watch your friends' mothers come to their recitals, their games, their graduations, and know that yours won't show up because she has an open house? To be 8 years old and understand that you're not as important as a commission check? Ruth whispered, I'm sorry. Emily laughed bitterly. Sorry. You're sorry. Do you know how many times I needed you? How many times I called and you were too busy? How many times I cried myself to sleep because my mother didn't love me enough to be there? I did love you, Ruth said. I do love you. You just loved money more, Emily shot back. You loved success more. You loved your image more. And now you've lost it all and suddenly you care about relationships. Suddenly you understand guilt and regret. Well, congratulations. You finally learned what the rest of us knew all along. That relationships matter more than money. That time with your child is more valuable than a big house. That I needed a mother, not a paycheck. Emily turned to leave. Ruth stood up. Emily, please. Just let me explain. Emily spun around, tears streaming down her face. Explain what? Explain why you missed my 10th birthday to close a deal? Explain why you didn't come to my college graduation because you were at a conference? Explain why I got married and you found out on Facebook? There's nothing to explain, Mom. You made your priorities clear. I just wasn't one of them. Ruth felt her own tears falling. You're right. About all of it. I was a terrible mother. I prioritized everything else above you. And I can't change that. I can't go back and be at your birthday or your graduation or your wedding. I can't undo 35 years of neglect. But I can tell you that I know I was wrong. That I've spent 3 years homeless and broken thinking about every single time I failed you. And I can tell you that you deserved better. You deserved a mother who showed up. Who put you first. Who loved you the way you needed to be loved. Emily wiped her face. That doesn't fix anything. I know, Ruth said. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to tell you the truth. You asked me once why I was never there. And I told you it was because I had to work. But that was a lie. The truth is I was scared. Scared of being vulnerable. Scared of failing. Scared of being the kind of mother I had who was poor and struggled and couldn't give me anything. So I worked and made money and built this image of success. And I convinced myself that was enough. That providing financially was the same as providing emotionally. But it wasn't. And by the time I realized that, you were gone. Emily stared at her mother. No. Now you're some kind of saint helping guilty people feel better? Ruth shook her head. No. I'm a guilty person trying to help other guilty people. So, I don't expect your forgiveness, Emily. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that this work, these letters, this project, it's not about redemption. Not for me. I'll carry the guilt of losing you for the rest of my life. This is just about making sure other people don't make the same mistakes I did. Making sure other mothers show up for their daughters. Making sure other people understand that love is measured in time, not money. Emily stood there for a long moment. Then she said quietly, I have a daughter. She's 2 years old. Her name is Sarah. Ruth's breath caught. You have a daughter? Emily nodded. That's why I'm here. I saw what you're doing and I thought about Sarah. About what kind of grandmother she'll have. About whether I want her to know you or not. And I still don't know the answer. But I figured you should know she exists. That you have a granddaughter. Whether you'll ever meet her, that's up to me. And I haven't decided yet. Ruth felt like her heart was breaking and mending at the same time. Thank you, she whispered. For telling me. For coming here. For giving me the chance to apologize, even if you can't forgive me. Emily turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold she stopped. She didn't turn around. You named this place the Redemption Project, she said. But redemption isn't about helping strangers. It's about facing the people you hurt and accepting that they might never forgive you. Can you do that? Can you accept that I might never let you meet Sarah? That I might walk out this door and never come back? Ruth's voice was steady. Yes. Because that's your right. I hurt you. And you get to decide whether I'm ever part of your life again. That's how this works. Emily nodded once and left. Ruth stood alone in the church, tears streaming down her face, and understood. This was real redemption. Not the happy reunion. Not the tearful forgiveness. But the acceptance that some things can't be fixed. That some relationships can't be restored. That the best you can do sometimes is acknowledge the harm, apologize sincerely, and live with the consequences. It was the hardest lesson Ruth had ever learned. But it was also the most important. We're almost at the end of Ruth's story, but what just happened is the most crucial moment of all. Emily didn't forgive Ruth. And that's okay. Because real life doesn't always give us the endings we want. Sometimes the people we hurt never forgive us. And we have to find a way to live with that. If this resonates with you, if you've ever hurt someone who won't forgive you, or if you've been hurt by someone and can't forgive them, I want you to know something. That's okay. You don't owe anyone forgiveness. And you don't deserve automatic forgiveness. What matters is what you do next. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in honest stories about real redemption. Share this video. And stay with me because Ruth's journey has one final chapter you need to hear. Ruth continued her work at St. Catherine's Redemption Project. The team expanded. They hired social workers, counselors, and volunteers. They answered thousands of letters. They helped hundreds of people find closure. They reunited families. They facilitated difficult conversations. They created a space where guilt could be acknowledged and addressed. The project became nationally recognized. Ruth was invited to speak at conferences, to write articles, to share her story. But she always made one thing clear. I'm not redeemed. I'm just trying to help others not make my mistakes. Emily never came back. 6 months passed. Then a year. Ruth checked her phone every day hoping for a message. It never came. She looked at the one photo she had of Emily as a child, carrying it with her everywhere. She wondered about Sarah, her granddaughter she would probably never meet. The pain of that loss never faded. But Ruth learned to carry it, to live with it, to accept that this was the consequence of her choices. Then on a cold December evening, exactly 2 years after Ruth first entered St. Catherine's Church, someone knocked on the door. Ruth opened it. Emily stood there holding a small child bundled in a pink coat. Ruth's breath stopped. Emily's voice was quiet. Her name is Sarah. She's 4 now. She's been asking about her grandmother. I told her I would think about it. And I have. For 2 years. I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we're suddenly okay. But I'm saying that I don't want to pass my pain on to my daughter. I don't want her to grow up wondering why she doesn't have a grandmother. So I'm here. And we're going to try. One visit. And we'll see. Ruth knelt down so she was eye level with the little girl. Hi, Sarah. I'm your grandmother. Sarah looked at her with big green eyes just like Emily's. You live in a church? Ruth smiled through her tears. I do. Would you like to see it? Sarah nodded. Ruth stood and looked at Emily. Thank you. This is more than I deserve. Emily's expression was guarded. Don't make me regret this. I won't, Ruth promised. And she meant it. They spent 2 hours in the church. Ruth showed Sarah the stained glass windows now partially repaired. She told her simple stories about the letters and the people who came to visit. She didn't try to hug Emily. Didn't push for more than Emily was willing to give. She just spent time with her granddaughter and tried to be present in a way she had never been for her daughter. When they left, Emily said quietly, we might come back next month. Sarah wants to. Ruth nodded. We'll be here. Over the next year they came once a month. Always brief visits. Always with Emily maintaining distance. But Sarah started to warm up to Ruth. She would run to her grandmother when they arrived. She would tell her about preschool. She would ask questions about the church. And slowly, gradually, Emily started to soften too. She didn't forgive. But she began to trust. Trust that Ruth wasn't going to disappear. Trust that Ruth was genuinely changed. Trust that maybe, just maybe, they could build something new. Not the mother-daughter relationship they should have had. But a different relationship. One built on honesty and realistic expectations. On Sarah's 6th birthday, Emily called Ruth. We're having a party. To my house. I thought maybe if you want to you could come. Ruth's voice shook. I would love that. More than anything. When Ruth arrived at the party, she saw Emily's life. Her modest but comfortable home. Her friends. Her community. The life Emily had built without Ruth. And Ruth felt both sadness for what she had missed and pride in the strong woman Emily had become despite her absent mother. She didn't stay long. Just an hour. Just enough to sing happy birthday and give Sarah the book she had carefully chosen. But it was enough. Ruth Morrison is 83 years old now. She still lives in St. Catherine's Church, which has been fully restored. She still runs the Redemption Project, though she has help now. She still answers letters from people struggling with guilt. And she still sees Emily and Sarah once a month. They've settled into a routine. A new kind of family. Not perfect. Not healed. But honest. Linda, James, Marcus, Yolanda, and Thomas all found their own paths forward. Linda got clean and went back to nursing, working part-time at a free clinic. James found therapy that actually helped and now volunteers with homeless veterans. Marcus started teaching again at a community center. Yolanda opened a shelter for domestic violence survivors. Thomas wrote a book about losing Sarah and about forgiveness, dedicating it to the daughter he lost and the community that saved him. They all still live in apartments provided by the Redemption Project. They all still come back to St. Catherine's every week to help with the letters. They're family now. The family they chose. The family they built from shared pain. The church has become something beautiful. The sanctuary is restored, with new stained glass windows that tell stories of redemption. The basement where Ruth's group once huddled for warmth is now a counseling center with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. The altar where Ruth found the letters is now a memorial to Father O'Brien with a plaque that reads, "He kept their secrets. We give them voice." People come from all over the country to visit, to share their stories, to find community, to learn that they're not alone in their guilt. Ruth receives letters every day. Some are from people who wrote to Father O'Brien decades ago and just now heard about the project. Some are from people who heard Ruth speak. Some are from people who just need someone to listen. Ruth reads every single one. She responds to every single one. Not alone anymore. The team helps. But Ruth makes sure each person knows their story matters. Their pain matters. Their guilt matters. And their capacity for change matters most of all. One afternoon, Ruth is sitting in the church reading letters when Sarah walks in. She's 9 years old now. Tall for her age. Smart. Curious. She comes to the church twice a week after school while Emily works. Ruth looks up and smiles. "Hey, sweetheart. How was school?" "Good," Sarah says, dropping her backpack. "We learned about forgiveness today. In religious education." Ruth's heart skips. "What did they teach you?" Sarah sits next to her grandmother. "The teacher said that forgiveness means letting go of anger. That if someone hurts you, you have to forgive them so you can be happy." Sarah looks at Ruth with those big green eyes. "Is that true, Grandma? Do you have to forgive people?" Ruth sets down the letter she was reading. She thinks carefully about her answer. Some people believe that. And for some people it's true. Forgiveness can bring peace. But I think it's more complicated than that. I think some hurts are too big to forgive. And that's okay. You don't have to forgive someone to move forward with your life. Sarah frowns. "But the teacher said holding on to anger makes you sick." Ruth nods. "That's also true. But there's a difference between forgiveness and letting go. You can let go of anger without forgiving the person who hurt you. You can accept what happened, understand why it happened, and choose not to let it control your life anymore. That's different from saying what they did was okay. Does that make sense?" Sarah thinks about this. "So Mom doesn't have to forgive you for not being there when she was little?" Ruth's throat tightens. "No, he doesn't." "Do you think she will?" Ruth shakes her head. "I don't know. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But that's her choice. I hurt her badly. I missed so many important moments in her life because I thought making money was more important. I was wrong. And she gets to decide whether she ever forgives me for that." Sarah is quiet for a moment. "Do you wish she would forgive you?" Ruth smiles sadly. "Of course. But what I wish doesn't matter. What matters is that your mom is honest about how she feels. That she doesn't pretend everything is okay when it's not. That she teaches you that you don't have to forgive people who hurt you. That's a gift, actually. The truth is a gift. But you see each other now," Sarah points out. "We have dinner. We celebrate holidays. Doesn't that mean she forgave you?" Ruth shakes her head. "No. It means she's giving me a chance to be part of your life. It means she's choosing not to pass her pain on to you. It means she's being generous even though she's still hurt. That's different from forgiveness. Forgiveness means the hurt goes away. Your mom is choosing to live with the hurt and let me be your grandmother anyway. That's actually harder than forgiveness. Takes more strength." Sarah absorbs this. Then she says, "I'm glad she did. I like having a grandmother." Ruth's eyes fill with tears. "I like being your grandmother. It's the best thing in my life." "Even though Mom doesn't forgive you?" Sarah asks. "Especially because your mom doesn't forgive me," Ruth says. "Because it means this relationship is honest. It means we're building something real, not pretending the past didn't happen. It means your mom is teaching you that you can set boundaries and still show love. That's important. Sarah leans against her grandmother. I love you, Grandma. Ruth wraps an arm around her. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. They sit together in the quiet church, surrounded by letters from strangers, building the relationship Ruth never had with Emily. It's not redemption. It's not forgiveness. But it's something. It's a chance. And for Ruth, that's more than she deserves and more than she ever hoped for. Ruth Morrison took shelter in an abandoned church after losing everything. She was 79 years old, homeless, and carrying decades of guilt. She could have given up. She could have let the cold take her. But she didn't. She found a basement full of people as broken as she was. She found letters from strangers confessing their deepest pain. And she found a purpose. Not redemption. Not forgiveness. But purpose. The purpose of acknowledging harm. Of helping others. Of accepting that some things can't be fixed, but that doesn't mean you stop trying. Old woman took shelter in abandoned church. What she found in the basement changed her life. That was the headline. But the real story is more complex than that. The real story is about a woman who spent 79 years making the wrong choices and 3 years trying to do better. Not for herself. Not to earn forgiveness. But because it was right. Because helping others helped her carry the weight of what she had done. Because purpose doesn't erase guilt, but it gives you a reason to keep living anyway. Ruth Morrison is 83 years old now. She has a granddaughter who loves her. A daughter who tolerates her. A community that respects her. A project that helps thousands of people every year. But she still carries the guilt of missing Emily's childhood. She still looks at old photos and wishes she could go back. She still wakes up at night thinking about all the moments she missed. The guilt never goes away. But she's learned to live with it. To carry it. To let it remind her every day to be better. To show up. To be present. To choose love over ambition. The St. Catherine's Redemption Project is still running. Still answering letters. Still helping people confront their guilt and make amends where possible. The church is no longer abandoned. It's full of life. Full of people seeking second chances. Full of stories like Ruth's. Stories of people who made terrible mistakes and are trying to do better. Not to erase the past, but to build a different future. One honest conversation. One letter. One apology at a time. And that's the truth about redemption. It's not a moment. It's not a tearful reunion where everything is suddenly okay. It's a daily choice. The choice to acknowledge what you did wrong. To accept the consequences. To help others not make the same mistakes. To live with the guilt instead of running from it. To understand that some people will never forgive you and that's their right. Keep trying anyway. Not for applause. Not for recognition. Not even for forgiveness. But because it's the right thing to do. Because you can't change the past, but you can change what you do next. And sometimes that's enough. Thank you for staying with me through Ruth's entire story. This wasn't a happy ending. Ruth didn't get her daughter back. She didn't erase her mistakes. But she found a way to live with them. And that's more realistic. That's more honest. That's more helpful than pretending everything works out perfectly if you just try hard enough. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the people you hurt never forgive you. And you have to find a way to be okay with that while still trying to be better. If this story challenged you, if it made you think about your own guilt or the people who have hurt you, if it made you question what redemption really means, then I've done my job. Subscribe to this channel right now. We don't tell fairy tales here. We tell real stories about real suffering and real survival. Hit that notification bell. Like this video. And most importantly, share it. Share it with someone carrying guilt. Share it with someone struggling to forgive. Share it with someone who needs to know that it's okay if relationships never fully heal. That it's okay to set boundaries. That it's okay to accept consequences. That it's okay to keep trying even when you know you'll never be fully redeemed. Leave a comment below. Tell me about your Ruth. Tell me about your Emily. Tell me about the guilt you carry or the forgiveness you can't give. This community exists to hold space for these hard truths. And remember, the stories of those who suffer are the stories that remind us we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all hurt people. And we all have to decide what we do next. Thank you for being here. Until next time, remember that redemption isn't about happy endings. It's about honest beginnings. And it's never too late to start being honest.